Thanks, Chard. That was really nice. Aimee, congratulations on your promotion. And I assume you already have tenure. So you know that means you never have to go to a faculty meeting again. And since you're the youngest in the New York system, you could set a state record if you want, and I hope you go for it. It's the only thing I dislike about teaching in college is faculty meetings. I'm honored to be back here again. I love it here. I love Miles and Mimi. Somebody should have been here, as you know, who's not here, Kurt Brown. I read this little quote of Kurt's yesterday at our reading for him that Laure-Anne found in his computer after he passed. And I think it's a wonderful quote, and it's why we're here. He says, "Literature is necessary because of all the crap we write and talk about the rest of the time." Kurt Brown. That's true. This poem is called "Cow Chases Boys." What we were thinking was bombing the cows with dirt balls from the top of the sandbank, at the bottom of which ran a cave-cold brook, spring-born. We knew the cows would pass below to drink, and we'd pried our clumps of dirt from a crumbling ledge. Here, August lasted 1,000,000 years. There was no we, I can tell you that now. I did this alone. At one cow I knew as old and cloudy-eyed, I threw the dirt balls as if it were a sport at which I was skilled. Boom, a puff of dust off her hip. Boom, boom, drilled her ribs and neck, and one more, too close to where she made her milk. She swung round and chased me up an apple tree. Her rage surprised me, and her alacrity. She looked up, I looked down at her. As such with many things, I did this alone. We both knew we'd soon be called home. I've been writing a lot of odes lately, poems of gratitude, praise, although sometimes I think some of them might be anti-odes. I'm not sure yet. But here's one called "Ode to the Fat Child Who Went First Onto the Thin Ice," which runs into the first line of the poem. "Ode to the fat child who went first onto the thin ice to test it for the three of us about a dozen feet behind. He was a big boy and could have broken each of us had he chosen to. Instead, he was a good big boy whose mother loved him and called him Pumpkin. It was on a pond, once a source for the frozen water trade, and at this part, Icehouse Beach, the thickest, the latest to thin, everyone said. Early spring of a hard winter. On the opposite shore, there were some woods we wanted to enter, a shortcut home. He disdained a rope we'd brought for such occasions. He went forward about 10 feet, we went back about 10. At mid-pond, he called, "Come on, one at a time, it's plenty." We were back on the beach by now. He crossed to the other side and called again, but while his back was turned, we were gone, going the safe, the ingrate way. This has a Latin title, nullius in verba. Take nobody's word for it. Take nobody's word for it. Don't believe anything anybody tells you. Think for yourself. Nullius in verba. Don't recall reading that in high school Latin class. If implicit could be nailed to the wall, it was implicit you took the teacher's word for it. I was a poor student and needed extra tutoring. On Saturday mornings, a defrocked priest in the family drilled me at his mother's house. Nullius in verba never came up. I required help with algebra, too. I didn't believe an X could equal a Y. I still don't. In fact, I believe algebra is a conspiracy. Of what and by whom I can't say here, but I have proof. Latin, at least, is a language, a good language, and it isn't dead. Read Catullus. Take my word for it. It isn't dead. So don't take anybody's word for anything, but take my word for that. This is called Attila the Hun meets Pope Leo I. Not a meeting I've researched, though I doubt it went well for the Pope. I'd rather imagine the horse sweat and saddle smell, the hungry men sated, the acrid of blood on iron, 1,000 cooking fires roasting the roastable. Who translated? Scribes were present. Attila smashed his wine cup on the table, splashing the Pope's cassock. I thought about Attila that night, polishing his boots with it, and the Pope in an oubliette. I'd rather think, however, of another Attila. Attila Joseph, the great Hungarian poet. He was teased as a schoolboy about his given name. For most of his life, if he had milk in his coffee and someone else did not, he felt guilt. Attila, followed by Joseph, lives before Attila, followed by the Hun. And I hope it would be so with my son and also his son. If you don't know Attila Joseph's poems, there's not many translations in English, but there are some, but he was a great poet. This poem has an odd little word in it, nurdles. You know what a nurdle is? Anybody ever hear that word, nurdle? They're those little plastic styrofoam peanuts that they pack stuff in. I didn't know they had that name either until recently. The poem is called Blue with Collapse. The devil's in my neck. Everything I hear is over-violined, even the wind. Even the wind. It's like walking in nurdles up to my chest, squeaky and slow. It's spring. The blooming branches nearly hide the many dead ones. A squirrel digging for a nut upends my frail tomato plant and fails to replant it, even though he has the tools. I find this kind of squirrely oblivion everywhere. I was a man filled to the top of my spine, filled to the lump on the back of my head with hope. Then I read a few thousand history books. Little and nothing perturbs me now. Even the beheadings, even the giant meat hooks in the sky, more frequent each day, bother me not a tittle, not a jot. Sometimes poetry is a way of saying one thing and meaning another. It's what a metaphor is, actually. There's another ode. This might be one of the anti-odes, but I'm not sure yet. Ode While Awaiting Execution. Ode While Awaiting Execution. Into the blue, mute, and marble green mailbox, my dust deserves to go, but not for that which I'm dying. I deserve to go, and not alone, because I did not sing loud enough about this life, this world. Singing poorly is acceptable. Not loud enough is not. There were too many things I saw which I did not sing of, things raw, eyeball vibrating, beautiful, or worse, things I forgot until a shock, a creak in a house of wood, waking to heat until a bent nail remembers for me. How did Spinoza define happiness? Patient acceptance of the inevitable? I find myself impatient. I'm often impatient, not for the inevitable, which can damn well wait patiently for me. So far, the governor's not called the warden whose palm itches for the switch. My lawyers, having in law no degrees, are not allowed in to counsel me. Appeals are exhausted, or at least very tired. So I scratched this out aloud, now neither pen nor pencil, on my last yellow pad's last page. I deserve to go, but not for that which I'm dying. Here's another ode. Ode to pain in the absence of an obvious cause of pain. Will you show me the tiny white scar where the tip of a blade broke off and stayed or migrated to a spot below your left lung? I thought not. And neither will you scan a magnet across my chest, nor an electro scan, nor a wand. Pain gets to live where it wants and doesn't answer the door, even for the men with warrants. Pain's private and seeks its preferable place to rent or buy or occupy inside a body. It builds a little house whose shades every hour, every day are drawn. Pain maintains a tidy lawn. But when pain, like an extended metaphor, imposes cruel new taxes upon oneself and others, it's time to take a scalpel to its door and ring the buzzer. Another ode. Ode to the pig rolled from the castle down a hill to where the peasants wait with axes. It's not funny. Is it? Yeah, it is. It's funny. I'm speaking to the pig here. The least fat of the king's fat swine, you were the last to reach the king's sow's teats, and later your brothers and sisters climbed over your back to feed on slop. Excellent slop, the king's table slop, but slop. So it's you they've tied in a ball and kicked down the hill to feed and appease the peasants. Since you are of the swine family, if you were fatter, you might have appeared on the king's table. Since you are of the swine family, you are oblivious regarding the difference. We worship you for that, as do the peasants with axes. It's another ode. Ode to those who study the miasmas. Praise all who wade into swamp, rubber pants up to their waists, anti-venom in a vial around their necks, each with a pencil and machete. The pencil for notes, what went wrong here, there, everywhere. The machete, you know what the machete does. The miasmas tried to find the root beginning at the end of where the root reaches. They sometimes die doing this, passing out food to the starving, the line so long they starve before it ends. They try to understand the world's malice, why one man smells a stink on another, why a man, his grandfather before him, his son to succeed him, pie charts the decades, the centuries of blood feud. They stab a microscope into a living louse to count the lice that will emerge from its next deposit. They burn to minimize the returns. They'll dive into the swamp, too, if they must, lead around their waists. They're trying to find out some things they don't want to know. It's need that decides how deep they dive. They're trying to find out where not to go, so later we can go there or we can hide. Praise them. This poem is called Otto mania. Now you'll see what I define the word in the first line of the poem, but part of the subject of this poem, or the central part of this poem, came up in the interview this afternoon with Natasha and Chard. This notion, every once in a while, every 5 years, 6 years, whatever, somebody writes an essay, an article that poetry's dead. The last one I heard about a year and a half ago, I was at the Dodge Festival, and there's about 40 or 50 other poets sitting around, and maybe 2,000 people in the audience, and we look, and the rumor goes around, or the story about this article had just come out. I think it was in the Washington Post. I never read it, but I think that's where it was. And then we all look around and say, gee, it doesn't seem so dead here. Poetry doesn't seem dead right here. There's a hell of a lot of people here, a hell of a lot of young people, a lot of poets. Doesn't seem dead. Some years ago at another article like this, Donald Hall responded to it. And I think this is the perfect and the right response when people say poetry is dead. It's not like it was when I was young. You know, it doesn't make me feel the way it did when I was young. He said the problem is not with poets, it's with the reader. He said there's something dead in you. You're not alive like you used to be alive when you loved, when you fell in love with poetry. It's not poetry that's changed, it's you that's changed. And I think that's often the case when every once in a while people claim poetry is dead. Onomatopoeia. The word for the inability to find the right word leads me to self-diagnose. Automatomaniac. It's not the 20-volume OED I need, nor Dr. Roget's book, which offers synonyms only, never discovery. I accept the fallibility of language, its spastic elasticity, its Jake leg as well as prima ballerina dances. I accept that language can be manipulated towards deceit, for example, the Mahatma propaganda, i.e. Goebbels. I accept and mourn, though not a lot, the loss of the dash semicolon pair. It's the sound of a pause unlike no other pause. And when the words are tedious and tedious also their order, well, sew me up in a rug and toss me in the sea. Language is dying, the novel is dying, poetry is a corpse colder than the Iceman. They've all been dying for thousands of years, yet people still write, people still read, and everyone knows that nothing is really real until it is written. Until it is written. Even those who cannot read know that. Thank you.